Hey guys, welcome to today's video on how your human design affects how you love, how you lead, and how you make decisions today. So if you're new to my channel, hello, my name is Elika. I'm an energy optimization coach and a trusted advisor for purpose-driven leaders who want to have so much more energy because you understand that that's what you're going to need to create the impacts that you're here to make in this world. So if you like the sound of that and you want to be on top of all of the content that I share around managing one's own energy, that valuable currency, then hit subscribe so you get notified of the next one. And let's kick off with today's topic, which is another real depth, a real exploration of energy through the lens of human design. So if you've not noticed that if you don't really understand your own energetics, the way that you are designed to give and receive energy in the world, then you're going to find that you're following lots of strategies, theories, textbook, other people, and feeling a little bit like you don't have clarity on your way of doing these things. And that's why I absolutely love using human design with my clients. So today I'm going to be sharing with you exactly how we use this in these different areas, like how we lead, how we love, how we make decisions, because most things fall into these categories. And when you know your energetic blueprint, you can do so much more with so little effort. And that's what we're really about when it comes to using our energy. So first, I think I'm going to go through with you the human design types as a reminder of what they are. So in human design, we have 5 energy body types. So most people are generators or a generator type. So the generators have this sacral energy. So when you look at their human design chart, they have what we call a motor, which is on the sacral, which is a really powerful energy source. If you imagine on the woman's body, that's the womb. And so with that, they're generating a lot of energy. And, you know, in that body type, they're designed to go to bed depleted, and so that they restore that battery, that energy center. And when you have a lot of energy, you really want to learn how to channel that energy and be a little bit more intentional. So when we talk about focus, really, we should be talking about that specifically to generators. And then you have the manifestors. Manifestors' energy body is more designed to be a receiver of insights. So everybody can manifest, but a manifestor, it's almost like it's their superpower. It's just what they do. They just bring things, bring in insights, bring these downloads into their body. And so you can imagine that the manifesting generator is like a hybrid between those two. The ability to just receive these powerful insights and downloads almost before they're received by most people. But then the generator part of it is the ability to then build and to create with it, but not necessarily to complete it in the way that the generator may be, because a manifesting generator almost wants to be playing between this space to receive these new insights and to inform people with it, but also showing them how to do it without necessarily completing it. And then you have projectors, and projectors are the newest form of consciousness in the human design types. And the projectors are designed with an energy body that's designed to look at energy through the lens of efficiency. So they're what we would describe as the natural born leaders, because they're designed to see efficiencies. So projectors will project their energy onto you so that you see the best way to do things. They will look at everything and see a better way of saying it, a better way of doing it, a more efficient way to use their energy. And that typically comes from the fact that their energy body is designed to be an auric field that receives the energy of the generators that they are designed to guide. And then you have the smallest type, which are the reflectors. Only 1% of the population fall into reflectors. Their energy body is literally a mirror to the world. They have all this openness in their energy body, that they just receive all the energy from all of their environment, people, anything around them, and they mirror that back. And that's why their decision making is designed to really allow time for all of that energy that they receive to be translated into what they make a decision on. So these are the energy body types. And if you haven't had a reading from me, you can look at the description box below, and if I have space on my calendar, you'll be able to click on the link and you'll be able to find a slot. So if not, everybody can get their human design chart on the internet. But what I would really say is that human design is not about knowing information, it's an energetic tool. So if you know your chart and if you've read your chart, what you have is information. The true work, and that's the work that I do in my longer programs, and obviously start that process with a human design reading, is understanding how you're going to use your energy. And that's the game changer of human design. So we've talked about the energy body types. Now I want to talk about how we use our human design to translate how we live, how we love, and how we make decisions in this world. So when it comes to how we lead, one of the key things that we see is in the different energy types, we may all have similar or even different energy centers. So what do I mean by that? When you look at somebody's human design body graph, you will see that they are all of these parts of the body that are called shapes. And you'll see that some of those are colored in and some of those are open. And the openness is referring to the elements of where they receive energy, amplify it and send it back amplified. It also refers to the parts of you that you really have to learn how to regulate in this lifetime. Because if you think about it, if you're absorbing energy into open centers, then I said we call it shapes, we call it centers. But if you're absorbing energy into these open centers, then you want to really know how to manage that energy so that when you send it out amplified, you send it out in the highest frequency that can. And really understanding the difference between yourself and the energy that you're receiving from outside of you. And that's why that regulation becomes really important. So what do I mean by that? So imagine now that let me think of a typical example of what I experience. So a typical example that I experience is when I hold a lot of events and I bring together purpose-driven leaders and they're really sensing into the room and just kind of feeling out each other. And there are things that you may say initially where you're kind of warming up and you're kind of testing the waters. So you might kind of start off with some very simple conversations. Oh, hi, what do you do? Blah, blah, blah. And then what you're doing is you're receiving that energy. Because remember, when people speak, that's also energy that's sent out. You know, verbal communication is also frequency, sound frequency that others receive in their open centers. And so what happens is when people respond to you, you can feel in your open centers what you can respond back to. So you regulate yourself and you go, you know, maybe now there's an openness I receive, so maybe I can go deeper in these conversations. Or you regulate that energy that comes to you and you realize, okay, I need to kind of wait till everybody's really warmed up. Now, I'm going to personally say that in my energy and the way that I'm here to deliver energy, I cannot do anything but just cut through the noise and tell you the raw and honest truth. But when we talk about leadership, what you want to be able to do is you want to notice what is the energy that you are feeling in any environment that you have to guide another that isn't necessarily what they've told you, but what you sense. And so, you know, the thing about understanding our energy is that we have to be able to drop the cognitive, the overthinking, the overanalysis. We have to really explore all of our senses in our body and notice how you feel about certain situations. Tapping into all the different senses that we have as primal and human beings that were designed to live on the land is a super important part of the leadership side. So when it comes to leading others, you can sense whether somebody is resistant to your leadership. They're resistant to the things that you're saying, where you want to guide them. So a good example of this is projectors, where projectors' energy is deeply penetrating so that they can lead and guide the generators. But if a projector hasn't followed their strategy, which is to wait for an invitation, they could be trying to guide somebody that really doesn't want to be guided. I sometimes often find it with my clients. One of the first things that I do before coaching a client is I do an energy audit where we do a deep assessment into every area of their life. And I will ask them, do they think they're coachable? Because if somebody's not coachable, you know that you're trying to guide them down a certain path and they're coming up with all these reasons why not. They're not allowing themselves to surrender to the fact that they've got all these beliefs, but they're allowing themselves to be guided by your wisdom, by your leadership. And so you really want to be able to tap into in leadership, is somebody open to your leadership? Is somebody's energy responding to you in a way that shows you that they're willing for you to lead them? And if you continue to lead people that don't want to be guided by you, then this is where there's that resistance in the energy. And this can be one of the frictions that creates, ultimately over periods of time, burnout. And we see this in, not just leading in our work, but also leading in our family, also parenting, also in our relationships with friends, everything, where, I'm often the person that would like to lead where we eat, because I really care about the food that I'm going to eat. And so I don't want to go to a restaurant and eat basically flour and sugar. So that can be a breakfast place where it's a bakery. That's probably not going to be my ideal scenario because they specialize in bread and pastries. So I like to lead where we go to eat, because then I feel reassured that we're going to have the food that allows me to eat for energy versus just eat to fill myself. And so I can feel resistance when people are like, it's a bit boring, or should we try something else? But equally, for me, to be fair, I hardly get that. I usually go, oh my God, that sounds great, let's try that. And so you can feel into the energy. It's not necessarily what they're saying, for example. In that scenario, it's the joy that they express when you're leading. Now, when it comes to knowing our energy type, this can really help us with love. Like, for example, those of us that have the empath body type, where it is in the energy body on your human design body graph, if you have the open solar plexus, so that's a white center for you, this is where you feel people's emotions run through your body as if they are your own. Whereas when it's closed, that means that you're generating your own energy, your own emotions so consistently that you absolutely know this is how you feel and not how somebody else feels. So imagine in the realm of love, and you have two partners and both of them have two open energy centers in their solar plexus where they process their emotions. And so knowing that those two centers are where you amplify energy, imagine that one person is feeling sad about something, maybe something to do with a relationship, and the other person being in their company feels that sadness. And so they absorb that sadness and amplify it back. And so now they amplify sadness to the other person. So now this other person feels even more sad. Can you see how, in terms of love and intimate relationships, that could be really challenging for a relationship to step into a higher frequency? Whereas if somebody is very either regulated in that area, so they have the open center, but they really can feel like that this is not how they feel and they can regulate that, or they don't have an open center there when the other person does, then they're able to sense that person feels, but almost they can remove themselves from how that person feels and understand how they feel differently, because their energy center is not necessarily absorbing in that openness that the other person has. So in terms of love relationships, we also can feel it like in the identity center. So on the body graph, those of us that have the open identity center, that soul center, that's the area of the I am. And so when you have this openness, you can tend to be a chameleon and try to be what everybody wants you to be. So you can imagine in your relationships, like trying to love somebody how they want to be loved. If it goes against what you desire and what you need to feel loved, can be really challenging. Trying to be a certain person, now I'm based in Dubai and I can see how so many relationships are formed from trying to be a certain persona that they perceive is what others want for them to be lovable. Whereas we actually know that, the highest frequency match that you can have in a partnership is when you're your most authentic expression and somebody just loves that about you. And so those of us that have the open identity, there's a lot of work to do on self-worth, on coming back to your core values, what I call the soul wounds, those initial woundings that happen in early childhood, and really, taking that time to do that inner work, to clear that out and to really know your sense of self, so that when somebody else comes along, you know what is them, their beliefs, their thoughts, their way of being, and you know what is yours. And if those two things are in harmony with each other, then that's brilliant. And if they're not, you're able to regulate in that area and have the conversations, take the actions that you need to realign, so that there's still possibility of those two energy centers that may be different to be able to be in harmony together. And so this can help us also when we think about in parenting. Like if I'm somebody that is holding a strong identity of how my child should be, maybe the education that they should have, or the performance that I expect from them, or the way that I want them to behave in front of certain people. If I'm holding strong identity around what that's supposed to look like, then I'm going to project that onto that child. Again, if a child has an open center, or even if they don't, because they're very malleable in those early years, right? Especially if they have like open crown where all that information and information is coming in, then I'm projecting onto that child and then really showing that child to be loved, they need to be a certain identity. And so let's move on to like not just like how you love somebody and how you lead, but really how you show up in a way to make decisions from a place that is authentic to yourself. So in human design, we have something that's extremely helpful here because we have what we call our inner authority. So if you see your inner authority as we all have two ways of receiving information. One is the moment we were born, we had this primal instinct that was in tune with us. It meant that the moment you were born, you knew whether you were hot or cold. You knew who your mother was. Nobody told you this. The human baby wasn't necessarily, even if they were told, right? The consciousness is not there yet to be able to receive that information. And then you have the outer authority. So I currently would be your outer authority now. Any podcasts, any books that you read, teachers, you know, culture, all of these things are outside of you and are giving you information, insights. So the inner authority is always the stronger because that's the thing that's with you all along. And yes, your inner authority can get conditioned from the outside world, cultures, beliefs, environments, religions, all of these things. But your inner authority is that part of you that stays true to you, that always is like an inner voice, that always senses when something is not in alignment to something that you're receiving outside of you. And so we all have our unique way of having to make decisions. So my inner authority, for example, is sacral. So that's the gut response. So that response to me means that when someone's saying something or someone's doing something, I have this initial feeling in my gut, this energy that goes there, that to me feels like a deep aha when someone says something, or the reverse, when my gut just kind of closes to that. And then after that, I get the cognitive set. And then after that, I might come up with the reason why, or that's because they don't like X, Y, and Z, or that's because of their age, or that's because their experience. You know, so you go in your head afterwards. Now, the truth is most people, they will have their inner authority respond. And because they've not trained that muscle or trusted that connection with themselves, and over time, they've gone to their head, bearing in mind that we all live in a culture that really has recognized us academically for receiving a lot of information, right? For accreditations, for qualifications, for education. We've all received a lot of recognition from passing exams where we've had to remember a lot of information and then regurgitate it back to somebody. And then we get awarded for regurgitating it back correctly, right? So because we've all had that deep conditioning, we all naturally can fall into using our brain as the way that we make decisions. But the truth is, when we look at the human design chart, most people do not have their brain as the way that is their first instinct on how they make decisions. In fact, most people, it's their emotions, all right? And with emotions, that means that if you are designed to make decisions by emotions, emotions are moving, right? Energy in motion. So you have to notice, how do you feel about that thing that you're making a decision on over a period of time? Now, if that thing is not so important, like what am I going to have for breakfast? Do I want the granola and yogurt, or do I want the eggs and avocado? Then you can see how you feel immediately about both of those and make a decision. But if that decision is something really big in your life, like where you're going to live, or the relationship that you want to be in, or choosing a job, these decisions, you have to really wait when you have the emotional inner authority for that emotional wave to settle. And so you need a period of time. Maybe you sleep on it long. Depending on the decision, you may wait longer to see what is the consistent feeling over time before you make that decision. So what I tend to find is that when I'm working with a lot of leaders, they are more in the cognitive decision making. And when I explain to them how their inner authority works, they can all think of examples of where they've gone against their inner authority. Or when I'm talking to them and sharing this, their inner authority is responding in that moment as a deep knowing and a deep truth. So they can sense in that moment what it feels like inside your body when your inner authority is responding to something, rather than your brain, your cognitive, like what I like to refer to the brain as the encyclopedia. So it's got a collection of knowledge and wisdom that you've collected over your life's experience, and that you can refer to at any time if you need something. But what if you haven't experienced this before? What if you're like the sage and you've got that kind of sage or oracle type of persona where you get those insights and they don't even exist yet, right? And so you're here to create something like the typical manifester that's here to bring down that insight and share it with the world. You're here to create something that hasn't even existed yet. And you're in your brain coming up with a solution, coming up with a reason why, instead of listening to your inner authority that's trying to guide you down the path of what you need to do or where you need to be, so that when that thing is created or when that person exists, that you are ready. I was having a conversation yesterday and the guy was saying that he's very clear on his purpose and it feels amazing, but he also is very aware that it's evolving. And one of the things that he's noticed is that the messages that he has to give to the world, when he thinks about who these messages for, he had this epiphany that actually one of the people that this might be for is going to change their life, and what they're going to do with it is going to be so powerful. But this person hasn't even been born yet. And this is the beauty of when you use your inner authority to make decisions. Like, some people were trying to make decisions on how to scale a business before the internet even existed, not knowing that the internet existed. Look at us now with AI, how it's going to take over, how so many of us are thinking about why we could do some things or could not. I was speaking to a founder yesterday who could not find the courage to get their own business started. And she's been in that hamster wheel for 2 years, thinking about different ideas and all of that. And as we explored, like, is this something that you could do alone? It was really apparent to me that, yes, she might get started alone, but without that support, every single time the new obstacle comes, her go-to is to not have the courage, not have the self-confidence, not have the trust in herself to move forward. So what do you think happens? It means that at every stage, there's a little bit of procrastination. So the completion of starting a business, getting it to the next level and getting to the next level gets delayed. And that's time, money, energy that you just don't want to lose. And so that's all because this person has been conditioned to go into their mental authority and not their true inner authority. So the way that you can make decisions with using your human design could be so much more powerful, because it's so much more aligned to the truth of who you are and what you're here to do. And so when you do that, you'll find that things just flow so much easily and effortlessly. Essentially, that's why human design is your version of success. And so I want to end this video today in just reminding you that the secret, the superpower of a business leader today is the ability to use your own personal energetics to move through the world, and not somebody else's formula that might not be personalized for you. And if you enjoyed this video, then give it a like so that more people can find it. I'm really enjoying creating this content around energy optimization, because I think tackling it, how we move through the world through the lens of energy, is something that's really missing in the conversation. And I have found it to be fundamentally different in terms of how my clients, who have worked with many coaches and done lots of personal growth and professional growth before coming to me, it's really shifted the needle in me showing them the truth that they really need to hear, in how their energy is what really shapes their reality. And so I'd love to hear any insights that you have, so leave those in the comments below. And I always say the best place to really understand how to integrate this into everyday living is my newsletter, which you'll see the details in the description below. If you sign up for my newsletter, you'll see that I'm sharing not just my own process of doing my energy audit and reassessing every area of my life and recalibrating that based on how I want to use my energy, but also the work that I do with clients to see how that shows up for them. And also, you know, if you are in the area, which is now Dubai. I don't always promise to be here, but you can always learn through the newsletter about my events and the experiences that I create for leaders to come together. So I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I've loved sharing this with you, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.